We have sent a spacecraft to Mars, 55 million kilometers away. We have mapped the surface of the moon. We have photographed black holes at the edge of the observable universe. And yet, the ground beneath your feet right now, the planet you have lived on your entire life, remains almost entirely unexplored. The center of the Earth sits 6,371 kilometers below the surface. The deepest hole any human being has ever drilled into this planet goes exactly 12 kilometers down. 12 out of 6,371. We have explored less than 0.2% of our own planet's depth. And the reason we cannot go further is not money, not technology, not political will. It is something far more fundamental than any of those things. This is the story of how deep we have actually gone and what stopped us from going any further. To understand just how little we have penetrated our own planet, it helps to start at the very top, at the surface, and work downward, because the journey from the grass under your feet to the center of the Earth passes through more extraordinary things than most people ever realize. At 6 feet below the surface, we reach the traditional depth of a grave, the starting point of every human civilization's relationship with the underground. Go a little further, to 13 feet, and you reach the depth at which archaeologists found the sealed tomb of Tutankhamun, the Egyptian pharaoh who died over 3,000 years ago, his treasures preserved in near-perfect condition by the dry stillness of the ground above him. At 20 feet, metal detectors begin to lose their ability to sense objects buried in the soil. At 40 feet, you reach the deepest hole ever dug by any non-human animal, the burrow of a Nile crocodile, which excavates its nesting tunnel to this depth to maintain a stable temperature for its eggs. No other creature on Earth digs deeper than a crocodile. At 65 feet, beneath the streets of Paris, lie the famous catacombs, a vast network of tunnels and chambers containing the bones of 600,000 people, relocated there from overflowing cemeteries centuries ago. The city calls it an ossuary. The locals call it the door to hell. Entering without permission is illegal, and the tunnels stretch for hundreds of kilometers beneath one of the most visited cities on Earth, almost entirely unexplored. At 170 feet below the surface sits the deepest swimming pool ever built, the Deep Dive Dubai facility, which holds 150 million liters of water and contains a complete underwater city inside its depths for divers to explore. At 328 feet, nuclear waste begins to be buried, sealed in containers and placed in stable geological formations, specifically chosen because nothing is expected to move or shift at that depth for the next 10,000 years.
At 346 feet, the deepest metro station in the world sits beneath the city of Kyiv, Ukraine, so far underground that multiple escalator systems are needed just to reach the platform level. At 400 feet, you reach the maximum depth that the roots of the largest trees on Earth can penetrate. A fig tree in South Africa was found to have roots extending to this depth, making it the deepest rooted plant ever recorded. At 720 feet, the bottom of the world's deepest river rests, the Congo River in Central Africa, which is so deep that sunlight never reaches its riverbed, and several species of fish living there have evolved in complete darkness, never having seen light in the entire history of their species. At 790 feet, the Seikon Tunnel in Japan, the deepest railway tunnel on Earth, passes beneath the seabed connecting two of Japan's main islands, a feat of engineering that took 24 years to complete. At just under 1,000 feet, the deepest road tunnel in the world runs through the mountains of Rogaland in Norway, completed in 2019. At 1,000 feet, the B-82 nuclear warhead, one of the most powerful bunker-busting weapons ever built, reaches the limit of its penetrating capability, meaning that nothing buried deeper than 1,000 feet can be destroyed by even the most powerful conventional nuclear weapon in any country's arsenal. At 1,286 feet, the deepest well ever dug entirely by human hands sits outside a hospital in Woodingdean, England, excavated over 4 years beginning in 1858 by workers using hand tools, dug to supply water to patients at the hospital above. At almost 2,000 feet, the deepest vertical cave shaft on Earth drops away in Slovenia, a natural fissure so deep that falling into it would give a person approximately the same experience as jumping from the top of the Shanghai Tower. At 2,300 feet below the surface is the point where, in 2010, 33 Chilean miners were found alive after 17 days trapped underground following a tunnel collapse, surviving on minimal emergency rations.
At 3,100 feet, the Bingham Canyon copper mine in Utah, the largest man-made excavation on Earth, reaches its deepest point, a hole so wide and so deep that the entire Burj Khalifa could be placed inside it, and the tip of its antenna would still not reach the rim. At 5,300 feet, the bottom of Lake Baikal in Russia sits, the deepest lake on Earth, containing approximately 20% of all the unfrozen fresh water on the surface of the planet. At 6,000 feet, the floor of the Grand Canyon is reached, one of the most visited geological features on Earth, where the exposed rock at the bottom is approximately 1.8 billion years old. At just over 6,000 feet, on the 7th of March 2020, a band called the Shaft Bottom Boys performed what is officially certified as the deepest musical concert in human history, playing live in the Creighton Mine in Sudbury, Canada. At 7,200 feet, the deepest known cave on Earth descends, the Veryovkina Cave in Georgia, a natural vertical system so deep that exploring its full extent requires experienced cavers to spend multiple days underground, sleeping on ledges and in tents suspended from the cave walls. At just over 10,000 feet, the bottom of the Imponing gold mine in South Africa is reached, the deepest mine of any kind currently operating on Earth, where temperatures at the working face reach 66 degrees Celsius, making it one of the hottest working environments in which human beings regularly operate. Workers spend an entire hour traveling by lift to reach the bottom of their workplace. And then, at 40,230 feet, just over 12 kilometers below the surface, we reach the Kola Super Deep Borehole in Russia, the deepest hole ever drilled into the Earth by any human civilization. It is 23 centimeters wide. It took the Soviet Union 24 years of continuous drilling, from 1970 to 1994, to reach this depth. And what stopped them was not mechanical failure or lack of funding or political collapse, though all of those things eventually contributed. What stopped them fundamentally was heat. At 12 kilometers depth, the temperature of the rock surrounding the drill was 180 degrees Celsius, far higher than the geological models of the time had predicted. And at that temperature, the rock behaves less like a solid and more like a plastic material, flowing slowly and closing around the drill in ways that made further progress physically impossible with the technology available. The record was later matched, but not exceeded, in 2008 by an oil drilling operation in Qatar, the Al Shaheen oil field, which reached 40,318 feet using directional drilling technology, meaning the hole was not drilled straight down, but at an angle, making it the longest borehole ever drilled, though not the deepest vertical penetration of the Earth's crust. Both records stand today, and neither has been broken by more than a few hundred feet in the decades since they were set. The reason the center of the Earth remains completely beyond our reach is not a failure of ambition or technology in the conventional sense. It is a failure against physics itself. The center of the Earth sits at approximately 5,000 degrees Celsius, hotter than the surface of the sun. The pressure at the core is 360 gigapascals, 3.5 million times the atmospheric pressure at the Earth's surface. No material that human beings have ever created can survive those. The interior of our own planet is the last great unexplored territory of the physical world, and it may remain that way for the rest of human history. The universe, it turns out, is not only vast outward, it is also vast downward, and we have barely scratched the surface. Subscribe to RM Journal for the stories hiding in plain sight.